Workplaces today run on laptops, Wi-Fi, and video calls. But step back just a few decades, and the office looked and sounded very different. The tools, the routines, even the atmosphere carried a rhythm that feels almost foreign now. Some of these things were practical, some were quirky, but all of them gave the workplace a certain personality. Today, we're dusting off the office archives to look back at 10 surprising things that vanished from workplaces. 1. Typewriters clicking away. There was a time when the soundtrack of the office was the sharp click-clack of typewriter keys. Every report, every letter, every invoice was hammered out by hand. The ding of the carriage return was a steady reminder of progress, and correction tape or whiteout stood ready for mistakes. Workers often became lightning fast, their fingers dancing across the keys with remarkable skill. Typewriters ruled offices from the late 1800s through most of the 20th century. They were symbols of precision and professionalism. But once personal computers and word processors arrived in the 1980s, typewriters quickly began to disappear. Today, that mechanical rhythm is gone, but hearing it again can transport you straight back to a busy mid-century office. 2. Rolodexes on every desk. Before digital contacts lived in your phone, every desk had a Rolodex. This spinning wheel of cards held names, addresses, and numbers, neatly handwritten or typed. Flipping through it gave you a sense of connection. You could almost feel the network of people you met along the way. Introduced in the 1950s, Rolodexes quickly became a staple of business life, often sitting proudly on a manager's desk. They weren't just practical. They showed your reach and relationships. By the 2000s, though, email lists and smartphones rendered them obsolete. Today, they survive mostly as antiques, reminders of a time when contacts were tangible and personal. 3. Smoking indoors. For much of the 20th century, cigarette smoke was part of office life. Ashtrays sat beside typewriters and telephones, and smoke curled lazily above meetings in boardrooms and break rooms alike. For many, smoking wasn't just a habit, it was a social ritual that shaped conversations and breaks. But by the 1980s and 90s, the tide began to turn. Studies on health risks changed public opinion, and new workplace laws pushed smoking outdoors. What once seemed normal quickly became unthinkable. Today, lighting up in an office would draw stares, but for a generation of workers, the faint smell of smoke still lingers in memory. 4. Fax machines beeping and buzzing. Once upon a time, the whir of a fax machine was the sound of progress. You'd feed a document into the tray, listen to the screeching connection, and wait as your paper slowly crawled out on the other side. It was clunky, but it felt like magic, sending an image of your document across the city or even across the world. Fax machines exploded in popularity during the 1980s and 90s, becoming a lifeline for contracts, forms, and urgent messages. But email and digital signatures soon replaced their role, leaving fax machines to gather dust. Today, the sound of that electronic buzz might be gone, but for those who remember, it was the hum of modern business. 5. Water coolers as gossip hubs. Every office had its gathering spot, and more often than not, it was the water cooler. Employees stopped by for a quick drink, but what really flowed was conversation. This was where you heard the latest news about the boss, the weekend, or even last night's TV show. The phrase water cooler talk became shorthand for casual gossip, born from these everyday moments. As bottled water, coffee stations, and remote work rose, the classic water cooler began to vanish. But those chats, quick breaks that brought coworkers closer together, still represent the softer, human side of office life. 6. File cabinets stuffed with paper. For decades, offices were filled with rows of tall, heavy filing cabinets. Each drawer held manila folders packed with contracts, invoices, and records. Finding the right file meant sliding the drawer open, thumbing through tabs, and pulling out the exact paper you needed. It was slower than a computer search, but it felt satisfying, physical proof of information in your hands. From the 1920s through the 1980s, file cabinets were the backbone of office organization. But as computers took over, paper began disappearing. Cloud storage and digital archives finally pushed the cabinets out of offices, leaving behind empty corners where steel towers once stood. Today, they're symbols of a paper-heavy world that's all but gone. 7. Office switchboards. Before direct lines, every call to a business passed through a switchboard. Receptionists plugged and unplugged cables, connecting voices with speed and skill. Many remembered regular callers by voice alone, adding a personal touch that no automated system could match. Switchboards thrived in the mid-20th century, becoming the heartbeat of communication. But as phone systems grew more advanced, automation slowly replaced them. By the 1980s, the sight of a receptionist at a glowing panel of wires and lights was fading fast. Still, for decades, switchboards weren't just machines, they were the human connection behind every ring. 8. Cubicle farms. The cubicle was once the symbol of office life. Gray partitions stretched as far as the eye could see, carving big rooms into small, personal spaces. Inside, workers decorated with calendars, family photos, and sticky notes, making the little box their own. For many, cubicles provided privacy. For others, they felt like cages. Cubicles took off in the 1980s and 90s as a way to balance open space with structure. But as workplaces embraced open plans, hot desking, and eventually remote work, the cubicle farm began to shrink. Some don't miss the beige walls, but others feel a pang of nostalgia for the comfort of a personal space in a vast sea of work. 9. Time clocks and punch cards. At the start and end of every shift, workers lined up at the time clock. Each person slid a card into the slot, heard the satisfying ka-chunk, and pulled out a record of their hours. It was a daily ritual, both strict and reassuring, marking the rhythm of work life. Time clocks were common throughout the 20th century, especially in factories and warehouses. But as computerized systems arrived, punch cards were replaced by swipe badges and later digital logins. Today, the ka-chunk is gone, but for many workers, it remains a sound tied to long days and honest work. 10. Candy dishes on desks. Finally, something sweet. Many offices once had candy dishes sitting on desks, little bowls of peppermints, butterscotch, or jelly beans. It was a simple act of kindness, a way to make coworkers and visitors feel welcome. A stop at the candy dish often led to a smile, a laugh, or a short chat. Over time, as health trends shifted and workplaces became more fast-paced or more virtual, the candy dish tradition quietly faded. But for those who remember it, that little bowl of sweets symbolized warmth and hospitality, softening the edges of the workday. From typewriters to candy dishes, from switchboards to cubicle farms, these vanished pieces of office life remind us just how quickly workplaces can change. Today's offices may be more efficient, but they've lost some of the texture and character that made work feel human. If you enjoyed this nostalgic trip through the workplace, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories right here on Heritage USA. And tell us, which of these workplace relics do you remember most?